Hey guys, it's Harrison and welcome back to Awkward Sports History. Yeah, I know, I've been gone for a while. We can talk about that later. But the important thing is I decided to make a timely video because the Buccaneers are back in the playoffs for the first time since I was in the third grade. That's 2007 for those who are wondering. And it made me wonder this. Well, actually, we're thinking about this all the time, but I really thought about it this time. This team is not normally that good. As a matter of fact, they're the Bucks, which made me realize it's about time I did a video on this team. And you know what? It'd be finally me making a video that's making fun of my own team and giving Lions fans and other fan bases a break. So here we go. The awkward history of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe down below. Hit that bell so you get notifications for my other videos. And, maybe share this with a friend. Maybe they'll like it. Cool. Let's get started. The story of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers goes a few years before their inception in 1970 with the merger of the NFL and the AFL. As part of the merger agreement, they would add new teams to the league. And in 1974, they added their first two new teams, the Seattle Seahawks and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, most of you probably already know this, but for those who don't, the Bucs had a completely different look when they started. This is not their original logo, and this is not their original colors. Originally, instead of red pewter and the skull and cross sword flag, they had a guy named Bucko Bruce, who I'll show you right here, and their colors were orange, white, and red. And you kind of have to wonder, I wonder where they got the concept for this creamsicle color scheme.
With genuine popsicle, fudgesicle, and creamsicle brand pops. It was fun.
Forget whatever this is, we're going with the creamsicle. Now, this creamsicle team probably knew it wasn't going to be good from the beginning, but they could at least put the pieces together to be competitive right out of the gate and then build a good team very fast. One of the first pieces they put together was getting USC's four-time national championship winning head coach, John McKay. To help with the offensive side of the ball, the Bucs went and got former Heisman Trophy winner Steve Spurrier from the San Francisco 49ers.
You've never before seen a real live Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Here's what one looks like. This is Steve Spurrier, for 9 years a quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers.
Which, FYI, he had been a backup his whole career, but he has won the Heisman, why not give him a shot? The Bucs also hit the nail on the head with their first ever draft pick when they got defensive end Leroy Selman for their first pick. They have a Heisman winning quarterback, a four-time national champion head coach, and they have a future Hall of Famer as their first overall pick ever. Things are starting to look pretty good, until they didn't. The expansion draft itself went really badly, but of course with no free agency, they were very harsh on expansion teams, and when you really get into it, it was nothing but leftover veterans who were too old to really play, reject young guys from college, etc. Expansion drafts are always really sucky for new teams, so it possibly couldn't be that bad, right? Well, let's take a look at their first few games and see how it panned out. The Buccaneers played their first game on September 12, 1976 against the Houston Oilers. They lost 20-0. The Bucs played their first home game ever a week later on September 19th against the San Diego Chargers. They lost 23-0. Week 3, they finally scored some points, but no touchdowns yet, and they lose. But in week 4, they finally get a touchdown. Still lost though. So it becomes very apparent right away that this team is really, really bad at scoring. And this team is probably not going to win a lot of games this year. As a matter of fact, actually, they didn't win a game that year. They went 0-14. The first team to ever go winless in a 14-game season. The only way to describe a season like that, if you're a fan, is rough. Fortunately for me, I was not alive for that, but I know someone who was, my own mother, and she's going to give her thoughts on that year since she remembers the whole thing.
So this was really tough because I grew up in Florida, and before there were the Bucs, everybody was a Dolphins fan. And when I was a little kid in the 70s, the Dolphins were this massive dynasty that just kept winning Super Bowls and having amazing players. And then we got our own team. And it was amazing and fabulous until they started playing. Johnny Carson made fun of us.
The Titanic and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Name two disasters that were accompanied by band music.
After that historically terrible season, things would still start to get better for the Buccaneers. It just would not show up at all immediately on the win-loss record. As a matter of fact, it took another 13 weeks on the season to get that first win. They lost the first 12 games of that season, and they finally won in week 13 of the 1977 season when they beat Archie Manning and the New Orleans Saints. Yes, and I mean Archie Manning as in the dad of Peyton Manning, Eli Manning, and Cooper Manning, because I don't want to forget Cooper, that would be mean. The team continued to improve. In the 1979, they were finally rewarded with a winning season, their first division title, and their first playoff win. They went 10-6, finished first in the NFC Central, and beat the Eagles for their first playoff win ever. They even made it to the NFC Championship when they lost 9-0 to the Los Angeles Rams. If I had to look at 3 keys of success to that 10-6 season, it would be first quarterback Doug Williams, the first competent quarterback they had ever had. They had running back Ricky Bell, who rushed over 1,200 yards that season. May he rest in peace also. And lastly, that defense finally came together. One thing you'll notice in the history of the Bucs is that when the defense is good, the team is good. The defense only allowed on average about 14 points a game, about 2 touchdowns. Actually, that's exactly 2 touchdowns, give or take an extra point. But there's still that one lingering issue that we see in the NFC Championship game of that year is that the offense still is not there, despite the fact that I just credited a quarterback and a running back. Offense is not something that's in the lingo of the history of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, not even when we get to the parts where they're good later in this video. Despite the lack of offensive success, the Bucs did have success as they had winning seasons in 3 of the next 4 years, and they made the playoffs in all 3 of those. After that, it gets really bad. They missed the playoffs for 15 consecutive years. A lot of those seasons, they have only about 2 wins. But hey, they didn't have another winless season, so I'll give them that credit. The first 2 years of the long drought were the last 2 years of John McKay's tenure with the Bucs. He resigned after the 1984 season due to health problems. 4 more coaches would come and go during this time: Lehman Bennett, Ray Perkins, Richard Williamson, and Sam Weish. None of these guys are good by any means, but it's very clear that some of them knew what they were doing more than others. For example, Bennett never won more than 2 games in a season and quickly got the axe. Perkins quickly doubled Bennett's win total in his first season, going 4-11, but he never had more than 5 wins in a season and was sacked. The same goes for Williamson. Weish, on the other hand, managed to go 7-9 one year, and he accounts for 23 of the 50 wins during that time. But in the end, they all got the axe because none of them could end this drought. Oh, and while we're on the topic of failure, let's look at the Bucs' history of quarterbacks. Doug Williams, he left for the Washington Redskins and won Super Bowl MVP. The Bucs had Steve Young, who left for the 49ers, became a Hall of Famer, and won Super Bowl MVP. Vinny Testaverde went to the Jets, turned his career around, and had a 22-year career. Now on the bright side, as we get towards the end of this drought, things are starting to finally brew for the crew in Tampa Bay. While the first piece of success shows up with the drafting of strong safety John Lynch in 1993, things really start to come together with the hiring of Rich McKay as general manager. And yes, if you remember that name McKay, he is the son of former Bucs head coach John McKay. McKay is about to draft all these key players, and tell me which ones you recognize. Derek Brooks, Warren Sapp, Trent Dilfer, Mike Allstott, Rondé Barber, and Warwick Dunn. Oh, and on top of those players, let's not forget the piece de resistance, the hiring of head coach Tony Dungy. Before we get into how this team does, I gotta talk about the Bucs' major rebrand they go through. The creamsicle uniforms are replaced with the red and pewter uniforms, and Bucco Bruce is replaced with the red flag with the skull and cross swords on it. From 1997 to 2002, the Bucs go on an unprecedented run for their team. They make the playoffs 5 of the next 6 years and win 2 division titles. Now we're going to look a little closer at that 5th appearance with that 2nd division title. Key contributors to the success like Dilfer and Dunn are going to leave, and Tony Dungy gets fired. They just can't get past that one last barrier. They are making the playoffs, they're winning division titles, but they just can't get past the NFC Championship rounds. But this is going to change in 2002 with the hiring of John Gruden. For the first time ever in team history, everything is going to click. The Bucs go 12-4, their best record ever, and they get the first round bye for the playoffs. After beating the 49ers in the first round, Rondé Barber goes coast to coast in Philadelphia to shut down the Vets, and then they beat the Oakland Raiders in Super Bowl 37 to finally take home a championship. Thank you guys so much for watching again. I know I was gone for a while, but I'm back for at least this video. I'm going to try and make a few more in the future as I have time to make them, and hopefully one day I'll be able to consistently put out videos again like I was over the summer. I'll see you next time.